everybody, and welcome back to the 5 O'Clock Sweats podcast. As always, I'm Ryan, joined by my good pals,
Derick,
Chris,
and tonight we are going to discuss some old games we've been playing recently because, good golly, modern games are boring the crap out of us for the most part. So it's gotten so bad that we're going back in time and we're playing games that we grew up playing back in the golden age of gaming. So to start, I've been dabbling back into some old school Halo. As everybody knows, I'm a Halo fanboy. So you don't have to ask me twice to go back and play the old Halos. I just boot up the good old Master Chief Collection. I've got all the Halos besides Infinite and 5 at my disposal. And I grinded, I grinded each game for a few hours the other day.
did you go in order?
I did not. So basically what MCC has is they have like a matchmaker where you can select the games you want to play, the modes, the number of people. Yeah, it's very
For
specific.
some reason, I was thinking you were doing campaign.
I was not. I did play, although the campaigns are still kind of fresh in my mind because I replayed them not too long ago. Anyway, so I was just playing randomly, and I did get games in each of the games, each individual Halo. But I guess if we're talking about older games, I'm going to specifically discuss like Halos 1, 2, 3, and probably Reach a little bit. So overall, Halo still plays like Halo. The gameplay still holds up after all these years. Even good old Halo 1 from 2001 holds up still to this day. It's still fun. Although, as you guys can probably relate, you jump into an old school FPS and you try to sprint immediately, and then you realize, oh, I can't do that.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is all I have.
So Halo is famously known to feature no sprint for the first 3 games, which, back then was fine because the gunplay was so clean, so snappy.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I playing the games back, do I miss sprint to an extent? Yeah, a little bit. It does feel a little slow, especially when I started to play. But after playing for an hour or so and getting used to the movement, I just fell back into my old habits. It felt like I was returning home after a long time. It was awesome. And the maps were built, they're built around that movement. They're not built, with sprint in mind. So they're a little more condensed, a little more conducive to the walking. Yeah. Dude, I booted up some Hang 'em High and some Battle and some Beaver Creek on Halo 1.
Oh my gosh, Hang 'em High, yeah.
Yeah. The nostalgia. I remember playing that on split screen back in the day.
I still have vivid memories of Blood Gulch.
I didn't get any Blood Gulch games. I did play Big
it's a
Team Battle,
shame.
but I got a lot of Valhalla, and then some Halo 2 maps. But yeah, I mean, Halo still plays really well. And
So
go ahead.
for me, feel is a very big thing in pretty much any game I play. So going back through the Halos, for each game, what was the best feeling thing?
It's got to be.
I don't know if I mean now during your playthrough or back when you were playing them for the first time. I'm not sure which one I'm really asking you about.
Yeah, I mean, what always drew me to Halo was just the gunplay, and just the gunfights you get in. Halo has a longer time to kill, not unlike games like Call of Duty. So you're getting into some pretty intense gunfights, and the better player usually always wins. And I just still to this day pulling off winning a battle rifle fight 1v1 is just so satisfying.
Yeah,
it's just the best feeling. You both get down to no shields and who can crack that first headshot. And yeah, it's just that's just what keeps me coming back, and still to this day, like I'm still getting that adrenaline rush and like feeling all those happy nostalgic feelings whenever I'm winning those fights. So yeah, going back and playing Halos 1 through 4. Yeah, I mean 1 through 3, even with the limited movement, still feel really good. The gunplay still holds up. Halo Reach, for as gimmicky as some of the things were in that game, like it was the first Halo game to incorporate sprint, and then some of the armor abilities like a jetpack, and just some of the other kind of cringy things that were divisive in the community. Armor lock. I was trying to think of the name. Armor lock. Like people, that is that is a trigger word for a lot of Halo fans back then. Yeah, even with all those additions to the sandbox, like they were like the game still at the core it felt like Halo.
Yeah, I feel like those first couple Halos, like the simplicity in the movement, or maybe even over simplicity in the movement, made it feel so much more clean. Because you're not, trying to climb over ledges and stuff. You're not trying to predict whether or not your enemy's gonna, dash out of the way of your sniper in midair. Yeah. Like if you're fighting somebody on Blood Gulch and they jump, you know that you're just following that jump the whole way down. And like that's always what I appreciated about like those basic move and jump and crouch. The original Halo.
And people used to always say back in the day, like if you're good at Halo, you're going to succeed in any FPS you play. And I fully agree with that. If you're a good Halo player, those skills are going to transition to all other FPSs. Mm-hmm. And I may not be as good at some other FPSs, but I find that to be true. I'm sure you feel the same way with Derick, with your with Counter-Strike possibly. Just like the aim factor, maybe.
I would say that while it doesn't directly translate, there are probably things that I learned from playing Halo that I kind of like made connections in my brain for Counter-Strike. Like if someone jumps, they're not going anywhere in midair. Like you can figure out where they're going to be in their jump and just wait for them. So positioning, that's probably one thing I learned.
Positioning too.
Oh yeah, especially in Counter-Strike. Like Counter-Strike is very tactical. So
even
yeah.
I'd say even something as simple as just like hiding behind a wall or like cutting what the enemy player is seeing in half, basically. So like half of your character is peeking out from a wall, and then just like going back and forth, strafing, especially.
So what about you? So what non-Halo game do you play now that you've seen some benefit in your play because you've played Halo?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer for me is Apex Legends, because it's a very similar...
I saw that one coming, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very similar time to kill. Like, you really gotta prioritize, especially on controller. Like, aim is so paramount. You need to be able to track your shots, which is huge, especially in a game like Apex or Halo, where the time to kill is so long. You got to make sure that reticule is on the player as long as possible. So that is probably like the aim and just trait and tracking. That was probably the skill that Halo taught me the most. That's really transitioned into games like Apex.
I think like with the aiming point there, I think Halo, I've obviously played Halo probably the least here, but I think Halo definitely trains you to be able to track and aim like from different angles and like while moving as well, right? So like while jumping, while sliding, or whatever it may be. And I think that's why it translates so well to Apex, because obviously in Apex you're very rarely shooting and standing still. You're usually doing like 25 things at once in that game, and I think Halo kind of helps you to like multitask in gunfights, if that makes sense. You're thinking about positioning for melee. You're thinking about putting a well-placed grenade, whether it's to actually do damage or to push somebody out of a position, or to maybe like, preemptively put a nade where they're going to land. Like, Derick, you said how, when somebody jumps, you can gauge the trajectory of the jump. So I think those are all things that, like, it teaches you how to play like fast-paced as a shooter. Whereas, for example, games like maybe Call of Duty, they're more grounded. And I don't think that they teach you those kinds of things. So I would agree that, Halo definitely applies to a lot of games, but I kind of think that something it sort of doesn't, like, it gets you accustomed to basically like hip fire in other games, because in
Right.
Halo, and same thing with like CS, right, where you're not often like when you like ADSing like down a sight, you know what I mean, like versus like in Call of Duty you're looking down an actual sight. So I do think it gets you used to doing certain things, but it might actually be a little bit of a detriment in other, more traditional kind of games where you do have to, rely more on aiming down your sight versus kind of being able to strafe and shoot quickly at the same time, which Halo lets you do, obviously.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's almost as if like the fundamentals are built up by playing Halo, but then, once you branch out into other games, like learning all the other stuff that's, less fundamental, like aiming down sight or, specific movement mechanics that we know Ryan loves. Like that's just extra icing on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not, and I've never been like the best Call of Duty player.
What?
So shocking, right? Shocking. So, and I don't like Call of Duty, but as we mentioned, as we mentioned previously, the time to kill in Call of Duty is just so fast, and I got spoiled by playing Halo so much where I can get shot first. Someone can get the jump on me and I can still like take cover or like still want to fight just based off of pure aim and strafing ability. Whereas Call of Duty,
it's fucking annoying when you do that to me.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm crouch spamming. I'm strafing. I'm trying to get in your head like, oh, he thinks I'm gonna go right again. I'm gonna go left twice. I'm really gonna put him on skates. But I mean, one thing that I have struggled with is just like my reaction time with like getting the first shot, and that was something that really frustrated me when I would play games like Call of Duty. That's probably why I didn't play more of it growing up. So that I was definitely spoiled with the shields in Halo.
Yeah, and also, with the maneuverability in Halo, you can be seen first, shot first, but still turn on somebody and win the fight. Not that you can't do that in Call of Duty, but obviously the window of time there is much less, and the margin for error is smaller. But another interesting thing, I was just kind of thinking more about the aim between like Halo and some other games, but as far as I can tell, I don't think Halo has a ton of weapon recoil, does it?
Barely any, and maybe like some of the more modern games like. I think the pistol in Halo 4, I believe, has like a tiny bit of recoil, but generally no, recoil is not really a thing, especially in the older Halos.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking how like Halo like teaches you and it rewards for first shot aiming at the head, whereas there's other games where with recoil you're actually kind of better to aim center mass and then allow like the recoil to kind of take you up to the head, right, where you get like 1 or 2 in the chest and then you get like 1 or 2 in the head for the headshot multiplier, right? So it's like and that's not all Call of Duties, because older ones, which we'll get into in a little bit, have had less recoil, and the more recent games they've started to introduce recoil patterns. Some of the patterns actually there's like bloom involved, so it's a little bit of a random recoil pattern. So that's a whole nother story, but I just kind of was thinking, comparing, the aiming between Halo and other games.
Yeah, so Halo Reach introduced Bloom, which was another really divisive mechanic in that game. So after play, like, go ahead.
How do you define bloom?
Bloom basically is when you have your reticule, and then if you spam your shots, like the reticule expands, so your shots are less accurate if you're spamming them as opposed to just like timing them out. So like the DMR and reach is just like you have to really like shoot, wait a second, shoot, wait a second, shoot. It's a lot. It's really methodical.
And then how do you define that differently than like recoil? Because in my mind, that's the same thing.
Bloom. The key to Bloom is that the bullet deviation becomes RNG. I think the where the bullet goes becomes kind of random within that widened like cone that you're aiming through. Fortnite has Bloom, so I'm sure you've played Fortnite where like, you know, a lot of people tap fire in that game, right? But if you full auto, like some of the assault rifles, right, the reticle gets like huge, and then your shots are just, you know, you'll have it right on somebody, but it's still going in different directions. There's a lot of like kind of controversy surrounding it because a lot of people say it's sort of to like kind of make gunfights a little bit more RNG. It helps kind of noobs or, you know, less skilled players have a chance. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons why Bloom gets introduced, you know, probably to do with a lot of other financial things, you know, keeping, you know, seriously, keeping less skilled players playing on the game. I don't know. I've always hated it in any game I've played, but there's a reason for it.
Right.
I think Bloom widen. Are you trying to say Bloom doesn't widen the skill gap or it shrinks the skill gap?
I think it shrinks the skill gap.
I think it does the opposite.
I don't, because what it does is it basically like, you know, you could actually have somebody dead to rights and like your bullets are just going all over the fucking place. And then they could turn on you, even though like you had like 5 real shots on them before they even saw you. Like if you've played Fortnite, you've had to have like gunfights where you're like, I'm owning this person, and then like, but none of your shots are actually hitting.
Gotcha. Okay, because what I'm thinking is like maybe the less skilled player isn't as, you know, they're not as in tune with like the rhythm of of shooting. So like the more skilled player will know the timing better, and they'll pull off those precise shots as opposed to, you know, the lesser skilled player. But I guess it works both ways.
I would think that any amount of RNG probably lowers the skill ceiling further than it would lower the skill floor.
Yeah.
So the top end comes down while the bottom end barely moves.
Like you can only be so accurate.
Yeah. Or you could only be so bad.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I think that's actually a good conversation piece for a future episode. Aim. Bloom. Couple last thoughts on replaying the old multiplayer for the old Halos. The weapon sandbox ain't it. It ain't it. Listen, I love Halo's weapons. I love the Needler. I love the plasma rifle, plasma pistol. But especially in the earlier games, Halos 1 through 3, besides like, and I'll start with Halo 1, besides the pistol, and like the rockets and the sniper. Everyone, that's all anyone uses. The assault rifle is basically useless unless you're in someone's face. The Needler's okay in that game, but you're always going to die to a pistol. It's 3 headshots. The plasma rifle, like, you know, in the newer games, you use plasma to rip shields, and then you pull out your kinetic weapon and get a headshot. Like in Halo 1, is before you're even able to switch guns, you're going to die to a person with a pistol. So the pistol is listen, I love the Halo 1 Magnum, but it is so dominant in that game. It just ruins the sandbox kind of. Like if you pick up any other gun besides rockets or sniper, you're at a disadvantage. So, and then in Halo 2, like it's kind of the same thing. Like the battle rifle is great. The carbine's really good. The sniper, rockets, obviously they're always going to be good. But then, like, if you're playing, like, especially if you're playing just, like, team BRs or ranked in those games, if you pick up, like, an SMG and try to dual wield, like, you're not going to succeed. I mean, the SMGs, the fully automatic guns are just not very viable, especially in higher level play in Halo 2. And then Halo 3 might be the worst offender, which is unfortunate because I love Halo 3. But like, I guess the only weapon I can really think of, the battle, I mean, same usual suspects: battle rifle, sniper, rocket, sword, gravity hammer, and the brute shot is okay. But like again, all the other guns, like the assault rifle, is so bad in Halo 3. It's so bad, and and it's like the SMG and like all the plasma guns are just like they're not viable. Like unless you're doing like a noob combo, and then I don't feel I feel dirty after doing that.
So
dirty.
Feel really dirty.
do you feel like the newer Halos have kind of fixed those balance issues? Have they corrected appropriately? Maybe if they overcorrected? Like I guess I'm thinking all of these older games, we'll say Halo 3 and back versus, today Halo.
Yeah. I think 343, if they've done one thing correct, it's been balancing the weapons in all their Halos. Infinite might be the best example of that. All the weapons feel viable, minus maybe like 1 or 2. But even then, like those weapons can still do damage. So playing Infinite now, like all the weapons, I feel like I can pick up any gun and succeed with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm playing like Fiesta, which is random weapon starts, I feel like unless I get like a plasma pistol, which is
Gross.
That's probably the worst gun in that game, unfortunately. If I get like a plasma pistol and like a disruptor, which is like the electric pistol, then I feel like I can succeed with any other loadout besides maybe that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the modern games have definitely done a better job of balancing the sandbox.
And it still feels like Halo. Like I've played them all too. Like it still feels like Halo.
Yeah, there's just like this. There's just an essence to Halo. Like all of the Halos, even Halo 4, which is probably my least favorite multiplayer. I was playing some of that too, and it just feels like Halo. I can't put my finger on it. It just it's the flow of the game, the combat. I just know. You just know when you play. It's like this is a Halo game. One thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, all you. I was gonna wrap that up.
Oh, sorry. I got one more thing to say. First game I played the other day, it got beat 50 to 7.
Jesus.
There are people on these games, and I'm sure this is the case with Call of Duty, Gears of War, all of those games that haven't stopped playing. And they're gods. Like I got 0 kills. I literally finished the game with 0 kills, which I don't think has ever happened to me before. But I had 1 kill and then I betrayed somebody by accident, and that took the kill. That took the kill away from me.
Wow.
Yeah. So to transition into another game that Chris and I have played, some of the old Gears of War games. I'll let Chris talk about this, but to start, Gears of War multiplayer is so difficult to go back to because the players are the people that are remaining on those servers are just really good.
Yeah, that's what we were saying when we were playing. Is I said like the people that are still on Gears 3, Gears 2, and even Gears 1 are like the people that never ever left. Like these aren't people that are coming back for like one night like we were to just feel some nostalgia. Like these people are grinding, and it shows. But I think the biggest takeaway from when you kind of like revisited Gears, and that particular playthrough, I think we did Gears 3 and Gears 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I felt like a tremendous, like I honestly got it was taken back to high school, and it felt really cool. Like there was definitely a lot of nostalgia. But what's really interesting about the Gears games is at the time they were so ahead of their time, and then playing them now, they're just so old.
Dated.
Like,
yeah.
it just doesn't hold up. Like the movement first of all, now obviously like Fortnite is predominantly third person, so I'm not going to say this like a blanket statement, but I think third person shooters are not as appealing as maybe they were then. And then this is about, maybe 15 years ago or so. And so I think that's kind of a knock against it, obviously being third person. But the movement and the camera work, it actually made me a little like motion sick because obviously the FOV is like so small, it's like so zoomed in, and I just felt like I couldn't see things because I really can't. I'm just staring at my dude's ass the whole time, you know. And I just felt like the movement, it's not intuitive anymore. It's, you know, A sucks you into this barrier, that wall, that corner. It's a lot of wall hopping and wall bouncing and shit. And it just felt like, you know, it was always gimmicky, but it felt really gimmicky, which is funny enough. I don't remember it feeling that way back then. Obviously, times were different. Yeah. I think the gunplay, too. I'll say I think the weapons are awesome in Gears. I think they all have like a very specific like use case, and they're all satisfying to get kills with. That's something that Gears really did and still does well, is like killing feels very satisfying, whether it's like the gore or, you know, obviously the very classic headshot in Gears. Mm-hmm. It all feels good and still does feel very good. But the actual like weapons, like I don't think they perform the same all the time. It's the strangest thing. Like, and this is well known, but like the Nasher shotgun, and I think a lot of it's server stuff, but
yeah,
you never know what you're gonna get with that thing. And I swear in Gears 2, they made it so trash that like you can't even use it. But like in the other games, it's like the weapon.
Yeah, so, they overcorrected in 2, I think, because the Nasher was so dominant in Gears 1.
Yeah.
And the Lancer was so not. So they kind of beefed up the Lancer a little bit in 2 and 3, which was good. But the Nasher in 2 is just so inconsistent. But I totally agree.
But when they like beefed up or like buffed the Lancer, what it did is it made like moving around the map a chore. Because you could get beamed, you know what I mean? And then, like, previously you would get beamed, but it would be doing nothing to you. And then, like, in 2, you're getting beamed by the Lancer, and you actually get downed by it. You know what I mean? Just running to the next cover. So, I felt like it was a little bit of an overcorrection. But regardless, I still feel like the gunplay is a little inconsistent. You know, you can aim in weird spots and still get, like, a headshot with the sniper. You know, not directly on their head. Or sometimes you could be directly on their head, and it just is a miss. So I'm sure that's just like old server stuff, but that's kind of what we were experiencing. And, you know, of course, I felt like, you know, the maps just feel, they're small. They're very small by today's standards. And it just felt like you could have one guy just sneak up on your spawn and just ruin the match. And I think we had that a couple times. And, you know, the weapon spawns are a little annoying. So overall, it was a lot of nostalgia. I just don't think that Gears really holds up too well anymore. And that's why I don't play like some of the newer ones, because it's just, I kind of would rather just let that be what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, I have a lot of the same feelings you do towards like the movement. Like it just feels clunky.
Yeah.
Which, as I've said before, is like the kiss of death when it comes to games, especially shooters. Like you do not want your game to feel clunky. And back in the day when we first were playing Gears, like it was so new and like, oh my god, nothing like this we never played anything like this before. Like this tactical third-person shooter where cover is paramount, and it was a lot of fun. But then like being exposed to other FPSs, and then especially over the years with movement becoming, you know, more liberating, and you get more freedom to run around and jump and do stuff. You feel so heavy in Gears.
Yeah.
And some people like that, but I think a lot of players these days, having played other shooters, are just like, the Gears would not succeed today. And it's probably why they haven't made a new game in a long time.
Yeah, and I also think like another way I would describe that game, and I don't know if it's just because we're playing it on newer systems or what it is, but it feels, along with being clunky, it does feel like a bit unresponsive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I find myself, and maybe we used to do this, but like, I find myself like just mashing the buttons repeatedly to do shit. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you accidentally get on cover and then you're trying to get off cover and you're smashing A, and then you roll out awkwardly and you get just like absolutely obliterated, or just, I don't know, just weird things. It did feel a little unresponsive to me.
Yeah, the rolling is so weird sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I'll be like, I don't know, I'm trying to sprint and my guy rolls. I'm like, okay, that's not what I wanted him to do. Why is he doing that?
I was thinking about that while you were talking about it, but like, I feel like back then I would, push a button and I'd know what was going to happen, and I would know that I would just have to wait for it to happen. But I think now we've kind of been spoiled by like, okay, things happen faster now. So now that we've gone back and like played these games, we're like, oh, do we really have to wait like the entire animation for him to roll around on the floor, get into cover?
Yeah. I do like the mechanic though in Gears with the perfect reload and how you get a damage boost from that.
Bro, are you really you're not gonna call it the active reload?
I forgot what it was called. I'm sorry.
He's gonna call it the perfect reload.
The perfect reload.
The really good job reload.
the thumbs up reload. Good job. It's like hitting a perfect kick in Madden.
All right. So what you meant to say was the active reload.
Yeah, the active reload mechanic is great, and I wish that was adopted by other games. I think it's a really nice way to kind of increase the skill gap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a great mechanic, and I hope other games use it.
It's a good mechanic, but it's a little bit of a cheesed mechanic too, because people would just pop off a shot, then active reload, and then take the fight. You know what I mean? It only lasts, I forget how many seconds it lasted until it wore off, but there was Gears was, like I said, it was ahead of its time in a lot of regards. Like, they had a lot of great mechanics, like the chainsaw, right? Active reload, a lot of some of the movement stuff you could do. But there was also a lot of stuff you could cheese in that game. The movement became very cheesed when people were literally wall bouncing, right? So you go up to a wall and you hit A to enter cover, but you also pull the stick away as you get into that. So it's like you're kind of abusing the animation because it sucks you to the wall and then you just jump off, right? So you're constantly just gliding, essentially. And especially if you go down a narrow corridor, you can just zigzag back and forth. You can.
It looks
That's
so
sweet, actually.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have to mention, crab walking. That was a was a pain in the ass. But I don't know. I felt like it just wasn't. It wasn't what I remembered it totally, and I don't think I want to go back and ruin the memories I have.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't have an itch to play Gears of War multiplayer. However, I do still enjoy the campaigns, playing through those campaigns.
Yeah.
I do want to do that again. That gameplay definitely lends itself more to a PvE experience as opposed to a competitive PvP because of the inconsistency in the mechanics and whatnot, especially with network issues and how frustrating they can be. But campaigns, chef's kiss. I've enjoyed every single Gears campaign I've played. The art style is amazing and the voice acting's good. If another Gears campaign were to come out, I would hop on that immediately.
Here's something I'll throw at you. So the Gears campaigns came with co-op play, at launch. And in 2023, we can't get games to launch with co-op campaign.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. saying.
And an aside, it's just weird booting up these games that we're playing and then seeing all the features. Oh my god, it's got a full slate of features. I remember when games used to release like this. This is crazy. That's kind of it brings a smile to my face, but it also makes me very sad on the inside.
Yeah,
that's what we've come to.
For sure, it's what did we buy then? We'd buy maps and maybe a couple. I don't know. It's just mostly map packs,
really
right?
maps,
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, the map packs and listen, map packs. There's a nostalgia with map packs, but if map packs were a thing today, that would be terrible. awful.
Dude, he's so triggered by this thing. I know exactly why you hate it. I know why.
Well, I mean, it divided the community, especially like back like every game that had download like map packs or downloadable DLC. Like you literally can't play the game if you don't have the maps. It's dumb.
Dude, he got so triggered when we were installing these games because they like had us install free additional map packs, and then like he forgot to install one, and then it wouldn't let him play, and then he was like freaking out. So he's like,
well, at least they were
"This is
free.
his soapbox."
At least they were free. Like back in the day, Halo had paid map packs, and if you didn't buy those map packs, you couldn't play certain playlists with your friends.
Exactly. If you weren't balling, you weren't playing. Like that was it. That was a business tactic, and I think that's far less. I don't want to get too far into this, but I think that's far less predatory than what we have today.
Microtransactions.
Because this was like a $10 map pack, and it was like every few months.
True. There's a balance though. I like how maps are generally free these days.
And it was actually adding like playable content, not like some snake skin to your pistol.
Like,
just saying. But that's neither here nor there. So I guess I'll kind of explain what I was also playing. In addition to a little bit of Gears, I have jumped back into some of the older Call of Duties. Specifically, I'm going to reference the original. So this is 2010? 2010? 2010.
The original what?
Or 11. Maybe 2011. Modern Warfare 3.
Oh,
yeah.
Modern Warfare 3.
2011 sounds correct.
Yeah, I think it's 11. I want to say 10 was probably Black Ops.
Yeah, because Modern Warfare, the original, came out in 2007.
Yeah,
and then
I'm pretty sure it's 11. But anyway, so the original Modern Warfare 3. Now, similar points with Call of Duty. The movement feels slow, right? But that's what Call of Duty was. You had a sprint that ran out, and then you kind of just jogged your way around the map. And it was a lot of like just hard scoping angles, kind of sitting in spots. You weren't like dolphin diving in this particular game. You weren't really you definitely weren't slide canceling around the map. So it was more, slow play, kind of keep your gun up. Having said that, it was slow, but you could like almost instantly ADS, and there was virtually no recoil. So I think the shooting, the gunfights actually feel better in the older Call of Duties than I would say in the newer ones.
Ooh. Okay.
Also, obviously, the maps were much better back then. We had our traditional 3-lane designs, and
love it.
Call of Duty's coming back to the 3-lane designs, but there were a few years there where like they were trying to do the exact opposite of that. And I just don't think there's too many memorable maps in the last few years in COD, but you can go back to the old games and there's a million of them. Hence why the new Call of Duty is going to be exclusively remastered maps. So maps feel good. Movement feels a little slow, but the gunplay feels good because you can aim down sight almost instantly. There's limited recoil. Animations don't feel over the top, right? I don't feel like every animation is 12 seconds long. So like reload felt pretty good. I will say throwing the grenades was something I had to get used to because they sort of just like plop out of your hand.
They sink, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that being the case, but like you can't get much oomph behind the grenades, at least in Modern Warfare 3, like you can in today's games. So that felt like a step backwards, but overall, I mean, I enjoyed it. It felt like true Call of Duty, and I'd be interested in hopefully seeing Call of Duty nowadays kind of go back to some of those kind of those ways, those early ways, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. It worked well then, and I think it could still work well now. So I do think the games hold up to some degree.
So if you could pick, 3 games, what would they be?
So if you could pick 3 games, what would they be? 3 games. 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 3 ga
one thing from the old Call of Duties to like pull through the time portal and apply to today's Call of Duty, what would it be? Like, I know you said that the gun fights were really good because, you know, just the way that the guns behaved.
Okay.
The map designs, all that.
I got the answer. I figured it out. So, Call of Duty has a way of overcomplicating things for no reason. And I think the weapon customization has gotten ridiculously out of hand. Mm-hmm. All right. No gun needs 75 attachments. And the reason I say that is because there's literally 2 attachments that are actually the ones you need to use. And everything else is basically a hindrance to you. So unless they could balance things better, there's virtually no reason. Like, why do I need 9 suppressors? I don't. I know. 1 or 2. 1 or 2 is fine. So to answer your question, I wish they would go back to a more simplistic. You could, put like 2 attachments on your gun, and I think if you wanted 3, you needed like I think what was the perk, bling or something like that. You needed like another attachment.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you needed another perk, excuse me, to have like an additional attachment. I don't remember the exact specifics, but that's what I would like to see is the weapon setups go back to being more simple. You had a bigger mag, a suppressor, different sight, whatever. But, I like the whole gunsmith thing. Like, I don't want tuning. Right? I don't want to have to know the attachments and then know, like, what decimal place I need to move the slider to. Like,
that's what always freaked me out about the current Call of Duties.
Yeah, it's just, I understand what they were going for, but it wasn't achieved. And I think it's, to be honest, just more of an annoyance than anything else. And, people that probably play the game for like an hour a week probably don't even know that's a thing. So it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? So take it back to the old way.
I really like that answer. I feel like that would be very refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, I think, unfortunately, the new Modern Warfare is taking it a step further, right? Aren't they further expanding on the gun customization?
I don't think so. They're changing some of like the categories of things. Like certain things are going to count like as equipment, I think, versus like perks, and like so they're kind of recategorizing some things to fit a little bit better and to balance a bit better. I'm assuming though it's going to be the exact same as Modern Warfare 2 in terms of the number of attachments and probably that stupid tuning again. I don't because those guns are carrying over.
Yeah.
So I don't really see how they're going to get rid of all that. If you know what I mean, because it's like what I would think is you'd have to be like changing a lot of the damage profiles and the inner workings, the coding for the weapons, and I think that would get kind of squirrely there. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be mostly the same, but we'll see, I guess.
I got to ask you one thing before we move on from Call of Duty. In your time playing the multiplayer, did you experience those old school pre-game lobbies?
100%. So as soon as you get into a lobby, it's the shittiest quality sound you can possibly imagine, and it's about 25 people just screaming. Like
the good old days.
Incoherent, just so incoherent.
I won't say what they're screaming because we already, and I'm sure all the listeners and viewers already know, what things are being said. But it's essentially that one guy incites the riot, and then the whole pregame lobby joins in. God forbid a female voice pops up on a mic.
No.
No.
Then it's
I feel so bad about that.
Yeah, it's all hell breaks loose from there. So, yes, I did experience it. I'm obviously much older now, and none of these things being said are new to my ears. But back in the day, as we said in a previous episode, I learned a lot of things in pregame lobbies. Hearing different references that I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And then you look it up and you're like, ah, shit. Why'd I look that up?
Urban Dictionary? What? Oh.
Yeah.
Some things never change.
Yeah, so they still exist. They're not quite as lively as they used to be. But somehow people, I don't know if it's just the audio in that game, but everyone still sounds shitty. So I used to think it was the microphones, but maybe it's actually the game and the way it, like, I don't know how that works, but
I'd believe that.
Yeah, it's got to be the game. The game's generating the sound to your ears. So
holy shit, it's bad.
That's hilarious. I'll just play just for the pregame lobbies. Honestly, I don't care. I can perform terribly. I just want to experience this pregame lobbies again. Just listen. I won't participate, but I'll just listen.
Oh, well, that was me. I never really responded back in the day. I would just listen and kind of laugh. But yeah, it's kind of the same. But like every other game, I think we're finding a theme here. There's a ton of people that never stopped playing this game. Because I was getting hit from angles that I didn't know existed. You know, like people know every square centimeter of these maps now. You know, 12 years later. So, also it was refreshing though to use a lot of different weapons that I haven't seen come back in newer Call of Duties. So that was kind of fun. I don't really remember the specific guns off the top of my head, but some pretty interesting ones. Also the knife lunge. I don't know if you remember that.
It was crazy in that game, wasn't it?
It was broken, dude.
Oh,
you could get
it was like the energy
from
sword in Halo.
Yeah, like a mile away, you'd get stabbed.
I do remember that.
Painful.
That just like unlocked a memory for me. That's nuts.
Well, there's still guys that just run around with their knife and just like, you know what I mean? Like Michael Myers you in the back.
Riot shield.
Yeah.
Oh,
cringy,
man.
but definitely a lot of nostalgia. And I can actually say, like, I will play that more. So, like, unlike Gears, I think it still holds up pretty well. You know, graphically, obviously not, but, you know, graphics don't make a game, in my opinion. So it's still fun.
Nice. Derick, it is your turn, my friend. What the hell have you been playing?
So I think I brought it up 2 or 3 times on this podcast, but I never beat the game Dark Cloud 2 on the PlayStation 2. And it's been bugging me ever since. It's been, 20 years now? Oh, I don't want to do that math. It's been like 20 years, basically.
All right.
And
before you get into that, for the people that don't know this game, because I don't know this game, can you give us a brief explanation exactly what it is? Like what genre and like the general vibes of the game? Like what are we looking at here?
I would say it's just a straight up and down RPG. I don't know how else to describe it. You control a guy, he's got weapons, you fight people. The combat is not turn-based.
Okay.
You are basically moving through rooms of a dungeon that I believe are like procedurally generated. So if you go into the same room twice, it's not going to be the same.
So like a Hades view.
Kind of, except you can move freely about the rooms, basically.
Okay.
It's not like a roguelike or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I think that overall it holds up surprisingly well. And I think I only say that because even when I was 10, I knew that it wasn't the best game. Right? Like all the animations of like the dialogue when you're talking to people, right? If you don't hit the X button and they're just waiting for you to respond, you know? I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. As soon as you hit the X button, like you can see like only their arm moving or whatever. Like all the animations are, I don't want to say basic. That feels like I'm just dumping on the developer, but yeah, it's like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Dated.
So that like visually, I think that's where it's lacking. The controls also felt a bit dodgy. I wouldn't call them clunky, but the camera specifically is not good.
Oh no.
I think it's too slow to react, so I always have to rely on, I think it's like L2 to center the camera on where your character's looking. And in any game, I hated that. So the fact that I have to rely on it so much, I hate it.
Oh man.
I think, side note, the camera in most of these RPG games that I played when I was little is probably the reason that I played inverted on Halo
I forgot you
for
do that.
years.
I
Wait,
forgot you're one of
what?
those people.
What the hell does that mean?
So if I have a controller here, but for years, to make my character look down, I
You
would
pushed
push
up?
up.
No.
Yeah. Kind of like
Like you're flying?
yeah, I was gonna say like a flight simulator, and I think it's from these RPGs because
Wait.
you're backed off third person. So if you want the camera to look down, you would push up so that the camera would tilt this way. You know?
This explains
No,
so much.
It makes sense, like, but it doesn't.
Dude,
Yeah.
Wait, so you played shooting games like that?
Yeah, Halo 2, 3, and probably ODST. And Call of Duty. Like pretty much anything I played on a console, any shooter, I would play inverted.
Dude,
Oh my god.
Which is really weird because after not playing a shooter pretty much for all of college and a couple years after that, like when I started playing shooters again on a controller, I was suddenly not inverted. And then I got into my head about it. I'm like, wait, am I inverted? And I'd try it out. I'm like, this feels almost right. Let me switch back. And I'm like, no, this feels almost right too. So I feel like I'm just caught in between right now. But that's still one of the legacy things that's hanging out in my brain. Inverted
Dude, that's
looking.
wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only done that for like any game where it requires flying, but I can't imagine like aiming and tracking someone like down with like up and then like down for like nah.
Yeah,
That's good for you for being able to do that, but geez.
Yeah, you should get a T-shirt that says "inverted player."
maybe not.
Yeah,
Maybe I
not.
wouldn't go that
Maybe
far.
not. Okay.
And I'd say the story is still pretty good too. It is still a story that I would expect to come out in the early 2000s from an RPG. There's some time travel stuff, some big bad evil guys that you gotta stop in the past so they don't destroy the future. You got a lost mom. You got to figure out where the fuck she is.
Just your basic RPG storylines.
So I think coming back into it, the thing that is on my mind the most is resource management. Only because I know that I failed when I was 10 because I was in the final dungeon. I didn't have any money to buy stuff to repair my weapons. And I was just fucked after that. And in the first couple dungeons, like in the first level, I was doing so good with my resource management. Like I was letting my weapons get like all of their use out of them before I repaired them. And I was doing so good. I got into the third, basically like the third world of the dungeons, and I am struggling, y'all. I see why I ran out of materials so quickly when I was 10. It's it's rough.
You didn't budget yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. But 30-year-old me has figured out a little bit of a way to cheese the experience system. So basically you're switching between two characters, and if you kill a monster with your main hand weapon, the experience that they drop only goes towards your main hand weapon. But I found that if you kill a monster, but then switch characters and then pick up the experience, both your main hand and your offhand get all the experience.
Interesting.
So I feel like I'm cheesing that a little
Okay.
bit, but that's also fine.
And hey, guess what? If they haven't patched it by now, they probably
I'm gonna
aren't.
say you're probably late to the party. Then I'm sure people have been doing that for years.
Well, if they have, I haven't found it because nobody was posting about this game in the early 2000s. Like everything I found online was on Game Facts. And it's
Game
like,
Facts.
last published 2002. I'm like, all right, well, nobody's touched this for 21 years.
You might have been the only person in the world playing that game at the
can't
moment you were
imagine
playing it.
What that page looked like as well.
It was Comic Sans
Yeah.
and Microsoft Paint put together.
Like
Because it was
word
a
art at the
diagram.
top. Oh, okay.
It was not good. I have it bookmarked, but
That's so funny.
another thing I didn't expect is the main character. As soon as he started talking, I'm sitting here just kind of like squinting at my screen. I'm like, where the fuck do I know that voice from? And it took me a couple minutes. I'm like, oh shit, this is Robin from Teen Titans. So the same guy that voices
my
Robin voiced this character 20-something years ago. I'm like, that I don't know. Something about that just felt
It's a
weird
good catch
to
by
me.
you. It's a good catch. That's
Yeah, I think I sent you a video on it. I'm like, this is fucking Robin trying to find his mom.
dude. OG Teen Titans was so good.
It was.
Speaking of, that's great. I cannot picture or hear Robin's voice in my head right now, but I can picture like all the other characters' voices.
I
which
can
is
very
funny.
vividly now.
Oh yeah.
But
Cool.
yeah, I'd say that on a whole, it holds up. And I think that's because, like we've talked about before, when they shipped out a PlayStation 2 game, there really was no patching it, right? What you sent out is what the people bought, is what they played. So
Exactly.
they kind of had to hold up.
Do you know about how much time it takes to complete that game?
I have no idea. And at this point, I looked it up. I'm 9.5 hours in, which I think maths out to like 3 hours per world, basically. I
Wow.
want to say maybe there's 2 more worlds just based off of the dark spots in my map, but
Okay.
I couldn't really tell you.
Yeah, for a game that old, I feel like anything more than like 15 hours would be impressive.
Mhm.
But I could be wrong. I don't know.
Either
Cool,
way,
cool.
I'm having fun. I haven't had a lot of time to play it recently just because I've been getting beat up at work. It sounds like I'm getting bullied. I have a lot of work to do at work.
But also getting bullied.
I'm getting a swirly at
Yeah,
work.
All the bigger kids.
They keep pulling my underwear and over my head and shoving me in the locker.
Ah, the nostalgia.
The bullying nostalgia. Back when things were simpler.
Anything else we got to say about old games?
Maybe, well, I don't know. Do we want to go around really quick and name one thing that playing these games like made us realize that we miss compared to like modern games?
Oh, compared to modern games. Okay.
Like what is something that existed in older games, replaying them again, that playing modern games now you're like, damn, I missed this feature in old games.
Oh yeah, I've got one. The actual replayability of these games. I feel like the games that I used to play 20 years ago have a lot higher replay value than games I've played in the last 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's interesting.
What about you,
I mean,
Chris?
to be
Anything?
fair, I did play a lot of RPGs, so I guess that makes sense. But
You were an RPG boy growing up.
Yeah.
You and your Final Fantasies.
hey, don't
for
talk about my
me-
fantasies.
I think I miss booting up a game for the first time and knowing that I was getting the whole game, at that time, and it wasn't like I was going to have to wait months, patch after patch after patch for a game to get to where I want it to be or where it should be. And I'm not just talking about like content in terms of like microtransactions. I'm talking about actual content, talking about balancing bug fixes, things like that. It's frustrating nowadays to dive into a game at release, and you're essentially doing yourself a disservice by buying a game at release, because you're probably going to give yourself a bad experience. It's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth, and you're not going to be there to see in 6 months time when it actually is what it should have been at launch, i.e. Diablo 4 for me. I've stopped kind of playing that for now, but I think if I just waited 6 months and bought it, it probably would have been a smarter move for me. Obviously, it would probably be cheaper, but it would also be, I'd let everyone else do the play testing, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I miss is, you bought a game and you're like, this is the game. Love it or hate it, this is the game. This is how they intended it to be. It's not missing things that they're deliberately holding out on for later or something like that.
Yeah, it's so sad to like the strategy when it comes to new games now is to like let it marinate for a few weeks and see like, is it worth investing my money in? Is it broken? Like, how broken is it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, start like Cyberpunk, obviously, like that was a disaster. Battlefield 2042, disaster.
Did it sound like he was about to say the name of another game that's about to come out?
Starfield?
Yeah, I thought you
Well,
were...
that's on Game Pass, so there's no monetary risk there for me. I'm just going to get that puppy for free.
But here's an interesting thing. So you referenced Battlefield. Battlefield is listen, it's not OG Battlefield, but it's in a much better state. But this is what, a year and a half, 2 years later? And what was the other game? Cyberpunk, also in a very good state, apparently. So it is. It pays to wait, both in terms of the sales that the game will have and the game will be finished. The thing that we lose is that hype period. Everyone wants to jump in at the beginning because of the hype. And back when we were kids, there wasn't hype for games as much. It wasn't like, all this fanfare. I just like walked into the store. I was like, oh, I want that game. Or someone's like, oh, Call of Duty comes out Friday night. Let's go get it. I don't remember there being as much crazy hype. Maybe I was wrong.
Listen, you're talking to a guy who's played Halo Infinite since release, so I understand that fully. So in regards to what I miss about older games, replaying them compared to modern games, are just the social features. Like, where the hell are all the social features in new games? Like, where at the pregame lobbies? Like, there's no pregame lobbies anymore. You can't hear anybody before the game, even after the game. Like, replaying these old Halos, like, there's a pregame and postgame lobby, and when the players are booted up, there's like a solid minute or 2 minutes before the game boots up where you can just go down the list of players, click on their name, check all you can check their KD, like their stats, like their rank, like what their Spartan looks like. And then after the game's over, you stay in the lobby with the people and you have an option to team up with people. If you liked playing with them, if you got along, if they were using mics, you can just be like, hey, let's team up and run it back. And that was how I made a lot of friends on Xbox growing up. Like half of my friends list was through just teaming up with random strangers I met online. So that is probably the thing I miss the most. Like, social features these days are just non-existent in multiplayer games, and it's a damn shame. So that is what we all think, what we miss about games. So I think now, do we want to go into our segment? Good old off the clock.
Loosen those ties. We are kick those dress shoes off and loosen put the feet up. We're off the clock.
Strap it on. What?
No, strap down. No.
Oh yeah, I'm inverted, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm kicking my Crocs off right now.
So off the clock. What are we excited for this week? I will go first. Monza is this weekend as we're recording. Again, time is a little bit weird since we released this a little bit later than the days we record, but we're going to Italy for this one, and my boy Daniel Ricciardo will not be driving because his wrist is broken.
Oh no.
So that is what I am excited for this week. What about you guys?
So it is, as we're recording this episode, we have Labor Day weekend coming up. So I'm just excited to go home and work on my tan. I'm going to go to the beach and hang out by the pool, and I'm going to be, hopefully by next episode, I'm not sunburnt, and I've got a nice kind of bronze look to me, and it's really going to come out on the next recording. So expect to see a tan and handsome version of Ryan next week. What about you, Chris?
I guess for me, I'm just most excited to see Ryan's tan. That's probably what I'm. No. I think honestly, this weekend I have a fantasy draft, so kind of like the last week, I'm still pretty much like in hype mode for fantasy drafts. I've done 1 of 3. We did that this week, so I'm excited this weekend to dive into the second one. I'm excited particularly for this one because this year is the first year where we've undone the keeper rule. So there were previously keepers in this league, and now this year there will not be. So everybody's up for redraft or for draft, and I'm excited because in this league we haven't had, when there's keepers, there's top talent, obviously never on the draft board. So I'm excited for that to be available now and kind of see where this league goes. It's like a full refresh, so I feel really excited about it this year. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, that is really exciting. Ryan, is that tan guaranteed? Do I have your stamp of guarantee? Sounds like a guarantee to me, folks. So you can follow us on Instagram at 5 o'clock sweats, X at 5 o'clock sweats. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And dear listener, if you are not watching this current episode on YouTube, that's fine. You don't have to. But we have it on his word, guaranteed. Next episode, he will be tanned, toned, fit, and ready. We will be on
the
YouTube.
fit part.
5 o'clock sweats.
Maybe not the fit part. Don't exclude that. I'll describe my tan in detail to the non-visual viewers.
No.
We're going to get the hex code for the color of your tan.
No.
Oh, man.
Cool.
Right.
Well, I guess until next week, stay sweaty.
Stay sweaty.
Hey, that one felt good.
Yeah. I kind of like that as opposed to the countdown. Derick just initiates the point. Someone initiates the point, and then
And waits a little bit.
Yeah. I like it.
Cool.
You ever just go into the bathroom and not turn the lights on because you're lazy as fuck and you just want to get it over with?
No.
Okay, well,
Do you sit at that point?
No.
That's psychopathic.
I've used my toilet so many times. I know exactly where to go.
Jesus. Like if I get up in the middle of the night and I have to pee, I don't turn the light on, but I at least sit.
Yeah.
I make sure that like I'm not just like wacky waving inflatable arm tube man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Peeing
I've
on
done
the
it
wall.
before, and then I've turned on the lights later and be like, oh shit. Some of it didn't make it.
Something happened here. Something terrible.
No, but for context, my light switch is to the left of my sink. If I go in through the hallway, then it's like I have to go past the toilet and the sink to flip the lights on. So sometimes I just go right for the toilet and then just do it. And I'll take the extra like second and a half it takes to flip the lights on.
Just goes right for the toilet, he says.
Damn, we should have been recording. That would have been sick.
Hey, dog. Hey, dog. Guess what?
Yeah. Oh shit, we are recording. Yes. We'll clip it.